Good morning, everyone. I see it's 11 on the dot here. I'm Nadia Oseguera Ramon. I'm joined by my co-host Geraldine. Hi, Geraldine. How are you doing this morning?
Good. Hi, Nadia. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, I see folks are already dropping their locations in the chat, so please continue to tell us where you're from, especially if this is your first time joining us. Please let us know. We have an incredible topic, very timely topic today. So we're going to go over some housekeeping, some icebreakers, and then we'll dive into the topic. So we'd like to kick things off with our question of the day. So if you can so kindly tell us in the chat about a time when your community rallied together to support your organization and what impact that had on your team. So I will start. I mean, it's been a while since I have been on the ground, but I was working out of the shelter in Baldwin Park here in Los Angeles, and it was during a heat wave where it was very, very hot outside, and we had put out a call for ice, just for people to bring ice so that we could put some ice in the water bowls and keep the kennels a little bit cooler. And the amount of, at one point it was too much ice, like we had to tell people to stop. But it was really incredible to see the immediate community rally behind the pets at the shelter. And so for me, it's little moments like that that really matter. But Geraldine, is there anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, actually, very relevant to today's topic and directly connected was during the fire. We had many organizations here in San Diego that reached out because I'm an independent human and animal welfare consultant, and people were asking me about like how they could help. And thanks to Pasadena Humane, I was able to connect them because they had such accessible resources online that we were able to connect them directly. So I could actually see their work in action. I was going to talk about it later, but why not now?
Yeah. So I see some messages coming through from April. So it sounds like there's a little bit of struggle there. I think you're going to hear a lot of good insight today from today's panelists about building community, especially in the animal welfare space. Um, I see some more about natural disasters. I mean, yeah, it's remarkable how folks can show up in times like that. Somebody sharing about a hoarding case of 70 small dogs. Oh my goodness. And the community definitely showed up for that as well. Um, so please keep these coming in. Um, I see comments about evacuations. Um, wow, very, very heartwarming to see all of this. And I'm sure that whatever difficult circumstance y'all were going through during those times, it made it a little bit easier to know that you weren't alone. So another exciting thing, while you keep these coming through, we do have some grant winners that we want to announce today. So I'm going to hand it over to Amber with Maddie's Fund.
Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. And thank you for sharing your amazing stories. We're going to keep the good, positive energy going by announcing the grant winners. Oh. All right, so for May 2025, last month, we have our prize winners. And the first grant is for our weekly community conversations, this call that you're all on now. We have two winners of $2,500. And that is Shannon Hall with Hall's Hopeful Hounds Rescue in Georgia, and also Latanya Smith of LC's Foundation in Michigan. All right, we're going to announce the next winners, and then I'm going to see if anyone's on the call. I should have said that first. Sorry. Okay, so our Maddie's Pet Forum winner, we have our monthly giveaway, which is a $3,000 grant prize, and that is going to Rachel Powell of Green Hill Humane Society in Oregon. And our last prize is the 30th anniversary $1,000 Cuddly Prize Pack giveaway. And that is going to Melina Lavuis and Lionel's Legacy Senior Dog Rescue in California. So congratulations to all of our winners. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Is anyone on the call today? Latanya, Melina, who else did we have? Rachel or Shannon? Anyone on the call?
I'm
here.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I saw Melina first. Hi, Melina. Good morning or good afternoon. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you are doing in Lakeside, California?
Yeah, so I'm the Forever Foster Coordinator for Lionel's Legacy Senior Dog Rescue. So it's basically the hospice dogs. But I also help with a lot of things with the community engagement and with events. Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be a great call for you to be on, and I love a senior dog rescue. So thank you for all you're doing, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Shannon or Rachel, Latanya, anyone else on the call?
Latanya Smith, I'm here.
Hey, Latanya, good to
Hi.
see you.
Good to see you too.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this. So yeah, I am in Michigan, based in Southfield is where the organization is based out of, but I do work in Detroit and all over. So I am excited because this will definitely help us in various ways. I do a lot of community work based through education, educating pet parents about pet care and pet ownership, and even the younger people who are interested in possibly becoming pet groomers. So this is awesome. We had a big event over the weekend with Michigan Humane and a law firm adopting over 200 pets. So I was there to support and give information about grooming, why it's important, and then offer low grooming cost services to those who need help. So I'm excited. This will do a lot, and this is new for me, but thank you guys so much. Thank you, Maddie's Fun. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for all you do in Michigan, Latanya. Good to see you. And I think I saw Shannon pop on too. Did we see Shannon?
I'm not Shannon, but I'll jump in. I'm Carrie, speaking for Dr. Rachel Powell from Eugene, Oregon at Green Hill Humane Society. She is currently in surgery right now. She is our veterinarian and one of our surgeons. And yeah, we here in Eugene, Oregon, take in about 6,000 animals in our community each year and care for them. Really want to thank Maddie's Fund for this funding. It actually comes at a very appropriate time because we just learned this morning that one of the community programs that we work with for the emergency housing for people who are unhoused, we perform surgery and care and provide supplies for individuals living in that emergency housing. And unfortunately, our county just had to end the program at the end of this month due to a lack of federal funding. And so this money comes at a really great, appropriate time to help us continue that program just a little bit longer. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Carrie and Greenhill, for all you're doing for the pets and the people in your communities. And that's something we hear from everybody on this call that we so appreciate. And I do see Shannon now. So hi, Shannon, congratulations.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, good. Yeah, so sorry, one of my personal pack members is trying to join too, apparently. But yeah, so we are so grateful, and we kind of ditto the other. Timing could not have come any better for us. We are a newly established Georgia rescue. And we literally just started operating in March of this year.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
So so we try, we hit the ground running, right? Because that's probably what everybody, with this passion that does this, that's what you do. And so our first few cases since we've been in operation has definitely come with lots of surprises and unexpected kind of lessons learned. And coincidentally, this was really, really almost kind of like we felt like it was good karma for us because when we got reached out to about this to, to verify our charity organization, that same day I had just I had just rescued a local dog from my true home base county, which was my first rescue for my home base county. And she's estimated to be between 9 and 12 months old, but she's a young Rottie that had a severely embedded collar. And when we rescued her, we knew that she had already had a surgery to remove the embedded collar. So from like a financial thing, we were like, okay, well, we've had a couple unexpected hard cases before her even, but it was like, doesn't matter, we're going to make it work. And we thought that she was going to be good. And then we rescued her Monday, and we took her to our local vet on Tuesday, and then found out that she had to be scheduled for another surgery that Thursday. So we are like, it was just like great karma. Even though we are new, we've hit the ground running, and we have saved 16 babies so far.
Congratulations. That's
small,
amazing.
But considering we're just getting started, we're very happy with our numbers. And 3 puppies might have just went live on our adoptables today as well.
Oh, wow. So, well, if you're in the area, check that out.
If you're in Georgia, if you're in Atlanta metropolitan area, and if you're looking for a puppy, feel free to reach out. But we do, we've got a lot of ambition, and we plan to help. We're already serving multiple counties within Georgia. And then as our rescue grows and our resources and networks grow, we will continue to rescue from our euthanasia lists from our different local animal shelters. And we do spay and neutering. And then hopefully in the future, we'll grow to be able to offer it not only for our rescued animals, but for our community, our regular community needs as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. And we wish you and the puppy the best with the surgery. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
And congratulations to all our winners. I'm going to turn it back over to Nadia and Geraldine for our speakers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Amber. Congratulations, everybody. So we will move on to our panel discussion, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Geraldine.
Thank you, Nadia. And congratulations to all the winners. So welcome, everyone. And as you know, today's topic is about the Eaton Fire that happened in California not too long ago. It was on the 7th of January this year. And today we are joined by the incredible panel from Pasadena Humane Society, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But we just want to acknowledge that this was very recent and they are still in recovery mode. And thank you to you for all of the work that you did and continue to do for the community. So our first question of the day is to each of our panelists. And if you could please introduce yourself and give us a brief overview of your role at Pasadena Humane Society and how you ensure that community remains at the heart of your work.
Laura, Marissa, do you guys want to go first?
I can jump in. I'll jump in. Hi, I'm Laura. I'm the Senior Director of our Animal Resources and Admissions. That means I oversee all of our intake, our support programs for owners, our community cat program, and I think that covers it. And during the fire, I was overseeing all of those programs that became essential during that time. And I ensure that the community remains at the heart of my work by continuing to engage with the community. I love to be able to go down and help out and speak with people and really stay in tune with what's being said, you know, what the needs of the community are, and not lose touch with that.
Hi, I'm Marissa. I'm the Senior Director of Placement at Pasadena Humane. So I oversee our adoptions program, foster, mobile adoptions, and our public animal training. Also during the fire, I was the Director of Animal Resources and Admissions right under Laura. So we worked very closely together during the fire and a lot of the recovery period. And I think similar for Laura, a lot of my job is focused on the community. And so really staying involved there and seeing how we can better serve is a big part of that.
My name is Ramon. I'm the Interim President and CEO at Pasadena Humane. I've been with the organization for about 6.5 years. I think the way that as an organization we keep community at the helm of what we do is embracing an ideology that we need to ask the community how we can help. I think that several years ago we went into a different direction of being more collaborative with the community. Pasadena Humane is an organization that believes very much that the solutions to the challenges that we see in animal welfare often lie within the community. So rather than being prescriptive, trust building and keeping a healthy dialogue with the community that we serve and identifying different ways that we can help them has been how we keep them at the heart of what we do.
Yeah, that is wonderful, because clearly that is what sort of helped in life-saving during the crisis that we were all facing. And so, Chris, could you perhaps tell us, like, a high-level view of, the overview of Pasadena Humane Society and a bit about, like, the community that you support, including maybe like a cultural, socioeconomic, and any other demographics that you could share?
I'm happy to. So our organization's been around since 1903. We are contracted with 9 different cities and Los Angeles County to serve 11 different areas. We have a healthy footprint within the San Gabriel Valley and into Los Angeles. Last year, we took in about 5,600 companion animals, but we're able to positively impact about 56,000 animals. And that's through our in-house field services department, our support programs. We're one of 2 shelters in Southern California that is licensed and permitted by CDFW to take in, rehabilitate, and release wildlife. Our service area encompasses about 490,000 people, and there's a lot of diversity in the backgrounds within the communities that we serve. There is a very strong Mandarin-speaking community, along with Spanish-speaking community and Armenian-speaking community. So it kind of highlights the importance in a multicultural approach to not only animal control, but being more than a shelter. Our staff is about 170 people with 1,400 active volunteers. And yeah, I think that's it.
That's incredible. So with a staff of about 170 to impact 56,000 animals is a lot. So congratulations. So as we all know, community engagement is not a one size fits all. It really depends on the community and adapting to the community, having community knowledge, trust building, and of course, like, it has to be consistent. And I truly believe in that type of a model. So how do you weave accessibility and collaboration and trust building into your daily operations and also your long-term strategies?
I can jump in here. I think accessibility is on the forefront of everything we do. I think it's something that we talk about in every short and long-term goal, from things that are more easy to see, like access to all of our programming and all of our contracts for adoptions or applications, or entry into our community resources program being in multiple languages. But I think it's also something that we continue to learn about and refocus as we go on. Something that Laura and I talked a lot about even before the fire with accessibility to some of our community resources programs was that we wanted it to be not just quickly accessible, but also sustainable, that we didn't want our pet food pantry or some of these programs to be something that was a stopgap to hold people over just a week or two. We wanted this to be something that people could rely on until they didn't feel that they needed it anymore, so that they could focus on other access points for themselves and their family and their pets. We also strongly believe that owners are the best advocates for their own animals. And so letting people really make a lot of decisions for their own animals and coming at it from a non-prescriptive lens and saying, how can we help you rather than this is where we think you should go with this. So those are some of the things we do. We try to work very closely with our community, again, on how can we help you throughout, our spay neuter programs, our community cat programs, the pet food pantry, our veterinary programs, the sheltering. Boarding during the fire was, something that we offered previously, but expanded exponentially during the fire. We took in over 300 animals that were owned and going to be boarding with us in that first 24 hours. But I'll let Laura fill in some things that I may have accidentally skipped over.
Yeah, so clearly we were very lucky because we had already established some of those relationships in the community, whether that be through our pet food pantry or free spay neuter for a community cat, conversations when someone's reclaiming their pet. So people already trusted us. And when disaster struck, they came to where they knew that we would be able to help. Some people were unfamiliar with the ways that we could help, but they knew that Pasadena Humane was the place to go. And so they kind of came to us and told us, what was going on. And we're like, all right, you just need supplies. Great. We're going to get you those supplies and off you go. And so all of those interactions, that interaction between a field officer talking to someone about their pet being off leash to, someone coming in to reclaim their pet or to surrender their pet. All of those conversations are opportunities to build trust and really have a conversation and work together for solutions versus, like was mentioned earlier, being prescriptive and focusing on enforcement. And so I think the movement that we made, years ago before I came, I've only been at Pasadena for 4 years, is why we are where we are today, is because they made, a proactive choice to move in a different direction. And I think that that's why we were able to respond the way we did and why people came to us the way they did.
I think I'd also add that internally, there has to be a willingness to reevaluate our processes periodically, because as the needs of the community have evolved and changed, the processes that we may have put in place a few years ago no longer allow us to serve the best way possible. So, an example of that might be, what the adoption process looked like coming out of a pandemic. How we can, place animals into homes without having people come to the shelter. So it's an administrative burden, but if there's a willingness to, annually or, semi-frequently revisit your processes to ensure that we are connecting the community with the services in our best way possible, that has also helped us kind of stay at the helm of that.
I think with what both Laura and Chris just touched on there is really focusing on building relationships with our community members one-on-one or as families throughout the entire time we're here, and not letting that just be touch points when they, are adopting an animal or when they're getting spay and neuter or when they're going through training, but really to help provide support throughout the entire, life cycle of the pet.
That's fantastic. Like what I'm hearing is like you were ahead of the game in a sense where you had already had these sort of proactive processes in place, and there was a flexibility where you were already trying to adapt your processes as you went along. And so it is a good segue into, getting deeper into it, because we want to talk specifically now about the fire and all of these pivots that you made during the crisis, and looking back at the response effort, and once again acknowledging that it's still emotionally and operationally challenging because you're in the recovery phase. Like you touched upon the pet food pantry and all of the resources, and so what role did your community-centered programs play in enabling this swift and effective response during the fire? Is there anything more that you could add?
When the fire first broke out, I think that, well, I know that we sat down immediately to determine what community-facing programs needed to remain in place so that we could serve, and what client-forward programs could temporarily be suspended so that we could reassign some of those staff and personnel to other areas of our operation that could be more impactful. So prior to the fire, we have been building our Helping Paws department, which, it provides several resources other than a pet food pantry. But, what we learned in the first couple of days is that people knew that we were a pillar in the community for those resources, but may not have been aware of what resources. So, knowing that our pet food pantry would need to be mobilized to go out into the community, we took away, some resources temporarily in offering spay neuter for a couple of weeks so that our health staff could be on standby to help a lot of the victims from the fire, but also redeploy staff and volunteers to other departments so that we could connect people with what they needed. So that's just one example of how some of the more service based departments were able to quickly mobilize.
I also remember how you, sort of created this online resource with all of the organizations, and it had like, if people wanted to donate, if people had pet food or any supplies, it was open to everybody, and it was across, like, beyond LA County, because I know that people here in San Diego were kind of like, accessing it. And it was incredible because it was in real time, it was live, it was being updated. And how did you get your team to sort of coordinate in a moment of crisis like that to keep updating all of those resources?
Well, I'd like to hear what Laura and Marissa have to say about that, but I'll first chime in by saying that one of our biggest takeaways during that crisis was the windfall that came in from the community was not something that we were prepared for. The amount of in-kind donations that we got in the first 72 hours created its own crisis, so to speak, for us internally, because it was a matter of how do we redistribute them right away to people that need them. We also ran out of space temporarily because the outpouring that we got, many people who may have seen us on the news saw that our front parking lot became this mountain of donations. So enlisting other organizations to help sort through that and, secure a warehouse. There was a moment where, we have a U-Haul dealership down the street from us, and we had at any given point like 7 to 10 of their largest U-Hauls so that we could separate, categorize those supplies so that we could access them a little bit easier. Simultaneously, knowing that people want to always stay with their pets whenever possible, identifying the opportunity to partner with human-based organizations. So we were able to quickly deploy a lot of our staff and volunteers with the Red Cross, with the YMCA, and other nonprofits in our area who were doing more human-based outreach. But we knew that inevitably, when there were people seeking human-based services, that there was likely going to be pets with them.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and add that, we couldn't have done this without our incredible communications team. The amount of information that was flying around on a daily basis was really hard to keep up with. Things were changing sometimes multiple times a day. And so really making sure that our community members had access to accurate information was really important. And they were able to do that through, different social media, our website, flyers. People were coming down in person. We wanted to make sure that they had the materials that they needed, and something to take home so that they can go through and get the resources they need later if they find themselves in need. But yeah, things were changing every day. Distribution points were changing every day, where pop-ups were. But the communications team really, it was just like everything was spinning, but they were able to keep up with that and make sure that people got what they needed, hopefully, and so hopefully preventing people from, having to come here and surrender. We usually always gave them the first option to board first, so they could kind of think about it, maybe just take a minute before they make that big decision.
Yeah, I'd also add having the established relationships with other nonprofits or any other organizations in the city allowed us to have a shorthand so that we could quickly pivot. The trajectory of the fire, because of winds and other things that were outside of our control, made it difficult to be in one place at one time. There was a point during the fire when we had to entertain the idea that we were going to have to evacuate our shelter along with the hundreds of animals that were in it in the middle of the night. So having multiple relationships in place gave us multiple venues that were further away from the fire. So as that trajectory changed, we could ensure that there was a safe drop-off and distribution point for anybody that needed those supplies.
I want to echo what Laura was saying too about the communications team and just all of the teams. I think something that's really special about Pasadena, and I'll say I've only worked here for about 18 months. It feels simultaneously shorter than that and 10 years longer, especially through the fire. But I think something that makes this place really special is the constant collaboration and working with all the teams. We have, one campus here in Pasadena. And so being able to work alongside of all different teams who do all different things every day really empowered us during the fire to already have those relationships internally and externally to be able to get that information out quickly and be in constant communication with our community members, our partners, each other, the staff. And I'll say, I don't even know if you remember saying this, Chris, or maybe just me bringing it up so often, but I'll say something that I think echoes what all of you were saying is the first thing that was said during that first big staff huddle during the fire was by Chris Ramon saying, do right by the animals, do right by the community, and do right by the staff, and then everything will be okay. And that was really moving to me and I think a lot of the staff, and really set the tone for how we were going to approach something that was affecting not just our service area and immediate community, but the community at large in Los Angeles. And also, this is our community. Our staff lives in this community. We work in this community. We live in this community. And so also having a lot of empathy and compassion that not only we were serving the clients who were walking up to our doors who, needed a variety of support, but also our staff members whose homes were affected, whose families were affected. And so I think it really just, again, set the tone for how we were going to approach the fire throughout the immediate and the future.
That is absolutely incredible. And honestly, that was one of the things we were going to talk about, which was about leading with compassion, because not only was there compassion for the community and the animals, but also for the staff. And that says a lot. And also, Chris, you'd mentioned how, Pasadena Humane Society was a pillar for the community, and that speaks to the trust, because people knew that they could come to the organization and they would be taken care of. And you did pivot and, extended your holding times and things like that. Those are all compassionate moves to make during a crisis. And that says a lot. And so, how did this crisis response affect your partnerships? With whether they were new or other long-standing community organizations, whether animal welfare or human welfare organizations?
I can step in. I think in a lot of ways it strengthened those partnerships that already existed. And, I think for those partners and us, we need each other. So, sometimes I know everyone gets busy. Maintaining these relationships is super important. We have to, get together every once in a while, make sure that we are aware of what the other one's doing. And being able to, when the fire happened, having people contact us and say, we're here, how can we help? Or if you can get food over here, we'll distribute it over at this point. That's great. It was overwhelming, but it was also amazing to see. But I think it overall strengthened those partnerships. And obviously we made a lot of new ones as well, which was amazing and great. I have to acknowledge all the other organizations that came in and helped from pretty much day one, ASPCA, San Diego Humane, a lot of other organizations I'm missing, but they really came in and helped. We were affected by the disaster, so they were helping guide us in, what we needed to do, what we needed to secure, the logistics, all these things that were so new to us. And so we're really grateful for their guidance. And honestly, we couldn't have done it without them as well.
I think it was incredibly moving to work alongside a lot of our partners, especially I think Laura touched on a lot of partners that, came in that moment and were incredibly effective at helping us on site, but also our transfer partners for animals. We were able to basically clear our shelter of all the animals that were, Pasadena Humane property at that point to be able to get them to safe places during the fire so we could continue to support the community who needed immediate sheltering for their animals. But I think, especially with some of our human service partners, it's something that we'd worked with them for a long time, but being able to work together in a crisis and really work alongside each other and learn a lot about how we both affected the community was really incredible. I think I learned a lot about the other organizations during that period as well.
We have a set of core values that we lean very heavily into at Pasadena Humane, and that organically are just embodied by most of our staff and volunteers. But one of those core values is collaboration. And I think that, as Marissa said, the only reason that we were able to get through this the way that we did was by leaning into that core value of collaboration and being vulnerable, kind of identifying what our needs are, where our shortcomings were at the time. And those other agencies who provided husbandry staff or search and rescue staff, transportation, anything that we needed. And so I think kind of embodying that core value and maintaining those relationships prior to the fire allowed us to, or at least allowed me to pick up the phone very easily and call on most of those organizations.
Fabulous. Yes. And living by your core values, nothing quite like it. And so like within your organization, with so many moving parts, obviously like there was collaboration, like, with your communications department and all of these other departments. But how did you take care of staffing needs and, their sort of crisis in this moment of crisis?
I can try and go first on this one. I think we needed to give everybody grace. The emotions were very high for a couple of weeks nonstop. We were living in this perma-crisis environment, even more so than, the challenges that any shelter is normally going through. But we had families of our staff who lost their homes. So, without judgment, we had to give grace. And if people needed to step away, I think we allowed that to happen. We worked very hard on cascading information so that to the best of our ability, even with everything changing, made sure that our frontline staff and our volunteers were aware of what was happening at any given moment, multiple huddles happening throughout the day. It kind of forced us to look at other ways to make sure that that information got cascaded down to everyone. But also partnering with other organizations. The World Food Kitchen was a huge supporter of ours in supplying breakfast and dinner for several weeks throughout the fire. So at least people, as they were coming into an environment where they knew emotions would be high, at least some of their basic needs were being met through making sure that everybody had, plenty of water and were fed. Our board of directors also made a decision very early on into the fire to issue staff bonuses. While it was just a drop in the bucket, it was just a way for our organization to show our staff that they were aware of what everyone was going through and trying to get a little bit of extra money, however that might help. I felt went a long way in kind of creating this idea of recognition from the highest level from our board.
I think in the same way we talked about the community being their own best advocates and being able to tell us and not respond with prescriptive measures for our community, we pay that same courtesy to our staff. They know what they need, they know what they're going through, and building that trust for them to be able to say, hey, this is what I need right now, and not really needing to explore that further. Just having that group mindset of everybody can speak for what they need and doing our best to respond to that.
I also think internally, we just had to be very real. We were in a time of crisis, and we had to compromise a lot of what we would be doing otherwise. I mean, less than a week into it, we were probably 2 or 3 times over our housing capacity. And having pop-up crates in common areas is something that we avoid by any means necessary. Portals were closed, pop-up crates were in motion, but from the senior leadership level, we recognized that every day. We didn't pretend that those things weren't happening for an undetermined amount of time. So to the staff and volunteers who had to take care of husbandry, we made sure that we told them that this will not happen forever. We knew that a number of people would come to reclaim their animals when they were able to do so, and that we would also have animals left over in our care afterwards. So I think managing those expectations, but recognizing that we are far outside of where we would want to be under any given circumstance was helpful, because that way we are not pretending that we're not really in a crisis when we're housing dogs in pop-up crates.
Absolutely. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful to hear how even with everything happening, you made time to make the staff feel heard and to recognize them for their efforts, even though at that time maybe the bonuses may not have been something where in other organizations they may not feel it was the best timing, because your expenses would have increased during that time. And so I feel these little things like recognizing staff and making them feel heard goes a long way in building trust too. And
I was going to say, just the one other thing that I forgot to add that we added that I feel like went a long way was providing mental health services for our staff.
I was going to add that as well, Chris. I think again, just recognizing that this was not easy emotionally, or just to experience this, as a community member, as a staff member, both sides of it. Like Chris mentioned, so many of our staff were personally affected by this wildfire, that I think providing mental health services and acknowledging that it was difficult was really helpful.
Absolutely. And are you sort of having that ongoing since you're still in recovery mode for your staff, or?
We don't have mental health services on site the same way that we did, but we have our human resources department who is constantly putting up collateral around where our staff and volunteers can find mental health resources. For ones that are outside of network or don't have insurance to do so, there's also another staff benefit where they can be connected with someone at no charge.
That's wonderful. Okay. And so, like we know, like in moments of crisis, like we often see like the deepest truths about our communities. It helps when we have knowledge and trust. So what is something that you learned or had affirmed about your community that you know so well during this time?
I'll go first. I think just that. I think that it is a community. I, was one of the newer people in leadership at Pasadena when the fire started. And so really just, I feel like I had gotten to know the community in the prior year that I'd worked here, but seeing everything amplified a million times, just that it is a community, that we're a part of it, that the community members and the people that I got to speak to from both sides, people that were affected and people that, we mentioned earlier, our brick parking lot turned into a mountain. I have photos of some of our volunteers trying to sort through it, and it's above their head. That we're all in this together in so many different levels in times of crisis and not.
Laura, did you want to add anything?
I'm trying to think, honestly, like thinking about it is sometimes hard to think back to those times and how difficult it was. It was hard to get up every day. It was hard for people to come to work and work 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours under really difficult conditions. And I think just in the last couple months, people have started to take the time off, try to take time off to recover mentally, physically, all these other things, even though summer is upon us. So, yeah, it's just, everyone is in a different place. Our clients, the staff, there's new staff that have joined and they weren't here for the fire. And I think looking forward, there's going to be a distinction kind of between the folks that did were here during the fire, worked the fire, versus those who came on board afterwards and only kind of heard about it, because you had to live it to have any idea what it was like in the first couple months. And so, yeah, I don't know, it changed everyone forever. It changed me, it changed the organization, how I think about what my role in the community is, what the role of the animal shelter could be. I had no idea people would come with pets in their arms, like running, lining up at the front of the shelter. I was shocked, but then I also, it made sense. Yeah.
I think echoing what Laura said, it was an honor to be trusted like that in those moments. I think it was not something that we fully expected. And so it was very moving that people trusted us in some of those darkest moments.
Yeah, it was a privilege to be in service during that time and to continue to be part of the recovery efforts. I think for me, one of the deepest truths that came out of it, I think in our industry, it's easy sometimes to kind of get caught up into the people don't care about their pets, and a lot of judgments are getting passed by without knowing people's circumstances. And so seeing a person walk their horse down from Pasadena through, a very dense part of the city to our shelter because they had no other options, and the conversations that our staff had with people who just needed some help, and we're not here to just dump their animals, speaks to this idea that people care. And I think that when we approach these situations with compassion and empathy, we can be reminded of that. Sometimes people just need help. People, in any large number, don't see their pets as being disposable or something that they can get rid of. People love and care about these animals. And so when there's an opportunity for the community and the sheltering organization to work together to help connect some services or just a temporary solution, I think that people will find that there are many, many more people who will do whatever they need to keep their pets in loving homes rather than surrender them.
I absolutely love it. Like everything that you're saying, like, we're all in this together, and, compassion, empathy. It was an honor to serve. It was a privilege, trust, all of these are elements and core elements of a community. And it seems that Pasadena Humane Society is integrated in the community. Y'all are not separate or, just another resource. And it's wonderful to see. And I know we're getting close to time, so I'm going to get to the last question, which is, if there is one action that you would encourage others to take to build a stronger, more resilient connection within their community, especially to be proactive and in preparation for future emergencies, what would that be?
I can jump in. I think it really highlighted the fact that it's worth investing in, regardless of if a disaster never happens, which probably will, but even if it never does, it's worth investing in. It's, the basis of what we do is to serve the community and the pets in that community. And so it's worth investing in from the get-go in every way you can.
Yeah, and I'll say that, everyone, including myself, is terrible at preparing for disasters for my own personal pets. We all talk about it all the time. People do workshops, all these different things. And I think having events in your community, whether it's a free microchip clinic or some other event where you're interfacing with the community and you have the opportunity to talk about why microchips are important because of that disaster that may happen. That's how you are going to be reconnected with your pets. And, having people think about, do I have enough carriers to even carry all my pets out? How would I even do that with my 5 cats or, what have you? Thinking through those logistics and maybe arming them with some of the supplies that they might need for that in the future. So like at a vaccine clinic, when a cat comes without a carrier and you're offering a carrier and they go home with that carrier, now they have a carrier to take that pet if there was, a fire or earthquake or something like that. And so I think just arming our community with the supplies that they need and, making it easy to access and just having it be something that they think about a little bit. I know that everyone's busy, but yeah, I mean, a vaccine clinic or a microchip clinic could be that touch point where now they have the tools they need. They got a microchip, they have a carrier, they're ready for a disaster. I don't know, you know, it's just all those little things, because microchips truly, I know everyone says this in every single disaster. If your pet was not chipped, it was very difficult to be reunited with your pet. So, yeah.
I think that tactically, absolutely what Marissa and Laura are saying, like there's opportunities for us to remind the community about some best practices. It was amazing or interesting to see how many horse owners in Altadena have horses but don't have horse trailers, or for the ones that do, don't routinely check the tires to make sure that they're inflated. The first night, you know, there was dozens and dozens of horses running around Altadena because either trailers were unavailable or not functional. So I think there's a way to kind of remind the community that we serve with some of those best practices. I think from a more higher organizational standpoint, embracing transparency and letting the community know where your pinpoints are and where your challenges are. And that makes it a lot easier to navigate through a conversation around identifying needs. We've been telling the community that we're in part of this national crisis with large dogs. So it doesn't come as any surprise. So when we are putting out a foster plea during the middle of this, we're not telling the community anything that we don't already know, and doubling down on where we've been transparent about challenges that happen in any shelter.
Absolutely. We would love to continue this conversation, but we are at time, and I just wanted to say we're truly, truly grateful. Thank you for everything you did during the crisis, for being a model for the community and other organizations, and for continuing to do the work that you're doing. You really are a model for others to follow. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
So for all the questions that were not answered, we are going to continue the conversation on the Maddie's Pet Forum. So please follow us there. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.